My wife and I led several of the teens to Brazil, and they're going to be coming. A few of them are going to be coming and sharing a testimony about what happened. Before they do that, I'm going to show you a few pictures that will kind of orient you as to what we did there. And while we do that, I'm going to ask that those who will be giving their testimonies, would you come down and sit on the pews right in front? You get to sit with Pastor Fox. They're on the front pews. If you would just go ahead and move that way, there's cut down on the transition. Hope that doesn't scare you away. But before I get into the pictures, I just want to share with you something very briefly from Romans 1:14 when Paul says that he is a debtor. He says, I am a debtor both to the Greeks and to the barbarians, both to the wise and to the unwise. Paul had this sense of obligation. And this obligation drove him to this readiness to proclaim the gospel. Because Paul felt this sense, this debt that drove him to say at another place, woe is me if I preach not the gospel. He said, I am ready because of this obligation of this debt, as much as in me is, I am ready to preach the gospel to Rome also. And that's when he says, for I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God unto salvation. And that is the confidence and the boldness that we have, that anyone who's going to be giving their testimony this evening has, because the gospel works. It actually saves people. It transforms lives. Brazil versus Holland game, because the World Cup was going on. It was really important for all Brazilians and people in Brazil to be watching that game, which ended up being a little bit of a disappointment for Brazil. But most of us took that opportunity actually to catch up on some social media corresponding with family. Very important to let the parents know that we are safe in Brazil. And then after that, we went to the church and had a meal with the people there at the church, and that was on a Saturday night. The next morning, we had a service there at the Alexander's Church. And Jordan, you'll have to remind me, this is your dad's 5th church plant, correct? And so as you can see, the building is not complete. You can see the cinder blocks there, and there are many aspects of the building that were obviously unfinished. And that was one of the things that we went there to help out with. So we had that service. And in that service, you see Chris giving his testimony there. That evening, we went to another church that Pastor Alexander had planted. I believe that was his 3rd church plant. And the thing that really stuck out to me about this is, as we went from this church in the morning, there was a smaller group of people and an unfinished building, just a lot of young believers there. And we went to this other church that he had planted years ago. It was a large, beautiful building that Pastor Alexander had built with a Brazilian pastor, a very fine preacher, a student of the Word of God, shepherding a growing flock of Brazilian people. And it struck me that Pastor Alexander was a man who would not be content just with planting a church and just letting that grow and grow and grow, but he deliberately put himself into a position where he would plant another church and start all over again so that he can duplicate what he had done. The girls were crowded there into the van. We really maxed out the van capacities there. Lemp gave a cultural lesson about Christmas and sharing that with them. And that was the point of that, was to help them learn English and also bring the gospel into that as well. This is a very important picture because it kind of demonstrates the weariness and yet fortitude of John Wade, who was on the trip with us. And the gentleman on the right side there, Ben Jacobs, he was a fellow missionary.
Her and her husband started having some struggles, and her husband also had physical problems, and then she started having physical problems. Well, she went into the hospital and she came home, and my mom has a custom of anybody she knows or is close to, she goes and visits them. And my mom just wrote down a simple verse. I wish I could remember the verse, but she wrote the verse down on a card and gave it to Swilly and also gave some flowers. And this, I'm recounting everything that Swilly told me from now on. This is what her testimony was. My mom came and gave her the note and the flowers, and Swilly just read the verse, and she was encouraged by it. But over time, she just kept going back to that verse and going back to that verse. And one day she saw my mom and said, and just talking and started talking about spiritual things. She was very inquisitive about spiritual things. And my mom said, I would love to do a Bible study with you. So for the next few months, my mom did a Bible study. My mom said it was definitely challenging to her faith because she had to spend hours and hours and hours preparing to give a 45-minute Bible study to this lady because she had so many questions. Well, one study, my mom invited her to go to church because she was very hesitant to go anywhere where there was, Christians and things because she was very opposed to it. But she said, I'd love to. I'll go with my daughter. So she went one Sunday, and that first Sunday, she heard the gospel and went out and had lots of questions, but was still a little bit hesitant. But the next Sunday, I believe, she said that she went into the service, and even as the Sunday before, the same thing, she felt like, we all say this, I know many of us have thought it, but we all say, I felt like I was the only person in the room. But anybody who was on the team, if you remember the testimony, she really meant it. The way she said it, she said, I felt like I was just sitting there and everybody completely disappeared. And I was the only person, and I was shaking in my chair, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew something was happening to me. And she went out after the service, and my mom said that when she spoke to her, Sueli came out after the service, and with all the questions she had, things she still didn't have answered, she sat down, and my mom started talking. She said, just a minute. And Sueli recounted the entire gospel message to my mom right there and said, I need to be saved. And it was just amazing to see that a lady who for years and years had been resistant to the gospel. Her son, Jackson, had been praying for her for 14 years to come to Christ, and her daughter the same thing. She came to Christ in May, and since then, it has been amazing to see how radiant and exciting she is. Everyone on the team would agree with me that anytime you're around her, she was always exciting and happy and ready to talk about the Lord, and just really excited to see the Americans willing to leave their home. That was something that she was very impressed by, that Americans would leave their home and come minister. And we just echoed to her that the relationship we have with the Lord, that she has the same one, and that just gives us motivation to be excited. So I hope you can rejoice with me and the rest of the team that we now have a new sister in Christ, and we can rejoice in that. Pastor.
The thing that was so impressive to me and us about that is realizing Satan really does lock people up, capture people in the shackles of sin, and Jesus really does break those shackles. It's real, and it happens, and we got to see this in the life of this lady. So apparent that the joy of the Lord was in her as she served us. More work here. You can see the carrying of very heavy bricks and stacking those. The structure you see above there in the background is the roof of the church building, and most of the work we did was in the basement of that. And so that, Lord willing, is what that structure will become, and we got to have a small role in moving that project forward. In the afternoons, later on near the middle of the week, Wednesday and Thursday, we did some promoting, some canvassing for the Vacation Bible School. And we went out to some schools during the time that they would dismiss their kids. And Pastor Alexander got the big ball and started bouncing and attract a lot of kids. And we'd hand out the flyers and try to smile at them, communicate with them as we could, and invite them to come to the Vacation Bible School. We see more of us interacting with the kids there. And then we did have a very good turnout for that Vacation Bible School. That's Mrs. Alexander there giving the children a missionary story. And we also had, on Friday evening, we had the opportunity to visit a English school and to give some cultural lesson. You see John King there giving them a lesson about the origin of Thanksgiving, and they listened very attentively. And then after that, we broke off into different rooms, played games with them, interacted with them. And these are teenagers. Some of them were more like upper grade school teenagers and above. So there's a wide range of ages there in that English school. But several of those came to the teen rally that we had that Saturday. And that was one of the points of us going there, is to get people to go there. Again, we having Vacation Bible School that evening. The girls on the mission team helped out with the crafts. And I show you this picture to kind of give you an idea of the sort of craziness that I had to put up with as we were on the team. and we had the games there for for Vacation Bible School. We had I don't have many pictures of this, but we had a great turnout for the teen rally. Many teens from different churches that Pastor Alexander had planted came to that, and we had a really good response to the preaching there. And so overall, we were able to work hard, make a significant dent there in the project there in the church, and build relationships with the people there in the church, and get the gospel to them. So that's kind of an overview of the week. And I'm going to ask at this time, in this order, some of the team members are going to come and share real brief testimonies. Let me remind you, team members, if we could make it real brief and focused, because we do have others that are going to be giving testimonies. We'll go Julie, John King, Tim Lemp, Mr. Wade, and then Chris Willis. In that order will come and share briefly something that the Lord impressed on them through their time in Brazil.
Hi, my name is Julie, for those of you who don't know. First off, I want to thank all of you for the prayers and the support. It just meant so much to me, and I prayed a lot about this, and the next thing I knew, someone comes up to me in church and just hands me some money and saying this is for Brazil. And I would be smiling the rest of the day and thinking, God's doing little miracles all around me just by telling people to support me because I need the help, and it was just amazing. Brazil was an amazing experience for me, and I can honestly say that it was the best trip ever. Just the whole team got so close together, and I just felt like it was just one big family, and it was a blessing that Pastor Alexander rented out a house for us to stay in throughout the week. One thing that stood out for me was that we're so blind to how blessed we have it. We have so much, yet we complain that we don't have enough. When there are people in different countries that aren't as blessed as we are, yet they're much more grateful for the things that they do have. So this taught me that I should be more grateful in the things that I have and not to take anything for granted. Thank you so much again, and I really hope that I can go back to Brazil soon.
This trip challenged me in my contentment. Everything, driving around Brazil, going to people's houses, everywhere we went, it just impressed me, like Julie was saying, how much less they have compared to us. The houses are all crammed together. There's no space in between the houses, no yards. Some people, we get a wide variety of food, we can have spaghetti one night and fried chicken the next night. Sweet tea, that's great. But, they have rice and beans, and then more rice and beans, and then the next day, hey, look, it's rice and beans again. So, it could get a little tiring. But, they're never, I guess they never realize what they're missing, it seems like. But it just challenged me about that and impressed upon me about my contentment. Miss Sparks in class is always telling us, you guys are so blessed to be able to live in America and stuff, and you're always thinking, yeah, I know, I got all this stuff. But it never really sinks in until you see in these other countries how compared to you they have so little, and you're like, I really do have a lot, and God gives me so much, but I'm not content. Like Julie said, I want more, I want this, I want that. This isn't good enough. We're just not content. I'm not content much too often. And the Brazilians are just extremely friendly and happy all the time, always smiling. They always want to talk to you. You don't understand anything, right? But they want to talk to. You know, we were talking with one guy, and we finally got him to understand. He kept saying mush for much. And we finally got him to understand what mush actually meant. And we're all like jumping around like, yes, you understand what mush means. And, you know, it's just crazy things. And they're just happy and friendly, you know, just much more friendly than, you know, a lot of Americans that I talk to and meet. I'm just, you know, it made me realize how glad I should be to be able to go home and have a lot of space and a yard that I can, you know, play in, kick the ball around. It was just really impacting on me. I'd like to thank you all for praying for us and me on this trip. We really needed it. And also thank you to all of you who supported me by giving money. It was really appreciated. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for just all the prayer support you guys gave us. It really helped our trip. And then personally, I want to thank Jordan for just the devotional he put together for our team, because that's one of the main things I really got out of this trip. Just one of the first things was the humility, just how much more humble I need to be before God. And then just my existence, the purpose is to glorify God. That's one thing I really have taken away from this trip and really have been affected by it. Another thing would be is just being patient. That's one thing that everyone on the trip said, that's one thing we need to work on, and just how so much that's true, just being American, and just how their patience is so much greater than ours. That's one thing that really stuck out to me. And then I would say another thing is asking God for help. Just there was definitely a lot of prayer put into this trip because it went extremely well. I don't know, Pastor Raphael, I think you would agree that this trip was extremely organized. God's hand was definitely on this, and there's no way that this trip should have gone as well. And then one of the last few things that I learned was just imitating Christ, being an imitator. We were studying Paul's life, and so just how he was talking about how he wants to be an imitator of Christ, how that we as Christians, that's one of the things we are to do as well. And then to say one of the things that I thought were my favorite things were just every night we'd get together as a team and discuss what we've learned that day, and then just being able to, the team just getting to know each other and the problems we have and everything. That's one thing that really stuck out to me. Then also just the Alexanders. So thankful for their ministry they have there. I really was impacted by Mr. Alexander and Mrs. Alexander. I believe it was Friday or Saturday. I believe Friday night it was. She was teaching the VBS, and yet she had a fever. She was having a fever right there. I believe she was sick, and yet she was still willing to. She didn't tell anyone, but Jordan was able to see that, and a couple of the others. I just found out. And that was a really big impact on me. And then once again, I just want to thank everyone for the prayers and just financial support, because this trip really grew me spiritually. Thank you very much.
All right. I am not a teenager, by the way, in case you haven't been for a while. Quick question, how many have been on a mission trip, either within the U.S. or overseas? All right, there's definitely quite a bit. So you know the impact that a trip like this, a small team that can have on you personally, or even the group. You just bond together. Of course, there's a lot of laughing that goes on, and just the interaction between the group, and you learn a lot about each other, a lot about their families, maybe that you probably shouldn't know. And it goes both ways. There's a lot of things that go on that's. As a mission trip, you come to know each other. But one of the things that I want to not repeat what everybody had said. I've got a list of things, but the hospitality that the Alexanders had was phenomenal. I have been on trips before but I don't know if you got that. We have a cook. I mean, to go on a trip and have a cook that cooks for you, that's not normal. That was one of the things we talked about, that this is, and it's their experience. It's what we were benefiting is their many years on the field. They know how to handle an organization or a group coming in and make us comfortable. We're there to try to help them. Nobody mentioned it, but our house had a pool. I mean, really? That's incredible, really nice. And it was because somebody had given them a nice deal on it, but that's not a normal, I'm gonna go work for God and swim in a pool whenever I need to. I mean, that's phenomenal, and that's the Alexander's experience and the people that they have around them. You saw a picture of Ben, Pastor Ben. I got to ride with him a lot up front. For some reason, I always ended up front. It was great. Everybody else was crowded in a 11-passenger van. I think we had, 19 or so, 20 in this van, and of course I'm up front, and we got plenty of room. But nonetheless, Pastor Ben is a phenomenal, you learn a lot about people by the people around them and the people they attract, and just says even more about the Alexanders for somebody like him to come up beside and be willing to serve under them. Phenomenal. One of the things that I really saw that was neat, because when you go on a trip, you want to help them, you want to leave them with something, you don't want to be a burden to them. To go to the schools and see and share with the kids and just be an attraction. Basically, we're Americans, they want to come talk to us, and to see some of those kids show up in the evenings, it was just, it took me back a little bit. Of course, that was the idea. We go talk to them, invite them, but when you see them show up and interact, and it's the first time probably on a church property, at least on this one, it's like, that's phenomenal. That's why we went. The other one, we actually, when we went to the English-speaking school, we were almost like celebrities. To put it, they just loved us because we could speak English, and so to see them come to the youth rally, which there was no other way they would know about it, it was just humbling. But to have the Lord be able to use us as Americans, it wasn't me, it was just because I was an American. They didn't care who it was, just they want to talk English. So they showed up, and phenomenal. The last thing that, probably the biggest impact for me personally, and I probably shouldn't have needed to go to Brazil, got that right, to learn this, but nonetheless, Wednesday night we went to some family's house. Everybody kind of broke up and went to eat, and the house they chose me to go to was a church member who was an alcoholic, and so I'm thinking, what do I have in common? I mean, my background, I was saved young. I don't have not an alcoholic, never was. And so what can I, kind of thinking about it. And so I was just like, you know what, we'll go, see what happens. And lo and behold, it literally, while I was talking to him, just kind of hit me like, because of things that happened in my life, I was able to relate to him and talk to him and have an impact. And it was just a very, very humbling at that point. It's like, wow, how could I even doubt the Lord not using me, But that was incredible to have that hit me right on the spot, to know that he can use my life, even though my testimony might not be a bad testimony, or gone through a lot of those, but just certain instances in my life that the Lord had used to talk with him. So I will, again, I don't want to, those of you who have prayed and the financial support, that was just to hear people talking, the group talking about the finances coming in, and that's phenomenal. So thank you very much.
As I recall, thinking about the trip and everything, just thinking about how God challenged me. This afternoon, when I was thinking about what I was going to speak on, it hit me like a light. God challenged me the most during this trip of going out and just speaking to people. and how just speaking to people, just talking with them and inviting them to the church and having them come into the church and give spiritual choice, being able to choose between accepting Christ or not is huge. And one thing that just spoke out to me, or that I think of with this, is the parable of the sower in Matthew chapter 13, how Jesus is saying to the group of Pharisees, talking to the multitudes about how a farmer went out to spread and the seed landed on the different kinds of soil. Many people in this world are different types of soils, and we just have to work at our best and just hope that we can just bring them in and allow God to do the work to them. So.
537. We have heard the joyful sound, Jesus saves. 537, let's stand together. We'll sing verses 1 and 3. We have heard the joyful sound, Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Spread the tidings all around, Jesus saves. Bear the news to every land, wipe the steeps and cross the waves. Onward 'tis our Lord's command. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Sing above the battle strife. Jesus saves. The endless life. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Sing it softly through the gloom when the heart for mercy waits. Sing it triumph o'er the tomb. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. You may be seated.
We had three of our college ladies that participated in different fields, so we're going to ask them to come at this time, one right after the other. Emily Ullman will start us here in Australia, followed by Kelly Fox, Ethiopia, and Morgan Leatherwood in China. So Emily, would you come at this time?
Well, there's absolutely no way to put 8 weeks into 5 minutes. So, I'm just so thankful for all of you and all of your prayers and support that you put into this trip. It really meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to the team knowing that there was a church out there, a whole church praying for them. And so I'm so very thankful for all of you. This trip was really life-altering, and it was a great experience, and I'm so thankful that God gave me the opportunity to do this. I'm technologically challenged, so I don't have many photos tonight, but this is our prayer card that we have. This is the team that went. And this team that goes out from Bob Jones is a little unique to other mission teams. We do go and help the missionaries, but the purpose of this team is to train us for the ministry. It's to train us in what missionaries do every day in foreign countries. And that's really what they do. We go and we help them, but it is the Australian missionaries and pastors that teach us and train us. And so it's a little unique. And as team leaders, the Matskos, their only goal is for us as individuals to take that next step spiritually in our lives, whatever that step may be, because it was different for all of us. So I really had a great time, and we did so many different things. I'm not quite sure what to highlight, but we were stationed at a camp in Queensland, which is in the northeast of Australia. And this camp is there and is run by an Australian family. Brother Pete is an Australian, and he married an American that he met at Bob Jones. They got married and went over. And this camp is there They really only have 2 weeks of camp. It's not like the camps we have here where they run all summer. Because in Australia, you can't have camp during their summer because it's too hot and too dangerous. So they have it during their winter. And these 2 camp weeks are really the highlight for many of the teens and many of the churches there in Australia. And so when we got there in Australia, we spent 2 weeks at the camp. And I don't have very many pictures of the camp, but you can see in the background, that's the dining hall, that's the main building that they use, and this is the blue team for junior week when I was a cabin leader. But these 2 weeks are really a highlight for the churches there. So we spent the first 2 weeks in Australia, we spent getting the campsite ready for camp. Really, when the team comes every year to Australia, they do manual labor for the first couple weeks because the campsite just gets overrun. Because it's really only the Blake family there. Brother Pete and his wife are there with their 4 children, and that's the only people who are there. So we come in and we do everything that needs to be done to get the camp ready. We painted the dining hall, which took about over a week with all of us doing it. We had to cut down much of the bush that had grown up. The camp is at the base of a mountain, so it's in the rainforest. So we had to do a lot of weed whacking and a lot of chainsawing to knock down some of the stuff that had grown up. We got the buildings ready, cleaned them out. And so we did that during the week, and then on the weekends we would go out and we would travel up and down the coast to the different churches that are there. And in those different churches, we would do Sunday school, we would do youth groups and Awanas, and just tried to minister to the churches there because they don't have a lot of people like we do coming in and out of the churches. They don't have different speakers a lot of times. It's just their pastor every Sunday. And so when the Matskos come in with the team, it's really a breath of fresh air for them because Dr. Matsko preaches, and we do the Sunday schools so that their teachers can go and hear Dr. Matsko preach. And so that's what we did on the weekends in the different churches. We did a lot of Bible clubs. Australia is kind of a unique mission field because when they do their yearly Bible clubs, they actually do it in the public schools. It's after school, whenever it gets out at 3 or 3:30, and they meet for 5 days a week, and they have their Bible club at the school, and the children who are at the school can get their permission slip signed, and they can come to Bible club every day. And so it's just a real blessing to be able to have that opportunity to do it in the schools because they get a lot more kids coming in than if they were to have it at their church. So we did a lot of Bible clubs, and I guess the 2 biggest weeks for us were the 2 camp weeks. We had a junior and a senior week, and God just did a really great work those 2 weeks. During the senior week, I was on program staff. I wasn't a cabin leader. So I got to meet a lot of the campers instead of just having one cabin to keep track of. I was able to meet a lot of the different campers. And it was so interesting to see how God brought each of them there. We literally prayed in every single child that came to camp because there's so many financial difficulties for them to be able to go, and there's so many obstacles. Many of the people, the children and teens who come to these camps, many of them are from unsaved homes. They don't have good backgrounds. They have split parents, abusive parents, alcoholic parents, just really, really awful backgrounds. And so coming to camp for them is a huge thing. And so it was just such a blessing to be able to see all of them come in and to see God work in their lives. We had an evangelist come in for both weeks, and he's an Australian evangelist, and he really has a heart for youth. And he really knew exactly what to speak on. And God used those 2 weeks to really work in the hearts of many, many children. Many were saved, and many who were saved made decisions to take the next step in their spiritual lives. But it's also kind of a prayer request because they got saved at camp, or they made that decision at camp, but then they're going home to those bad backgrounds again. And so it really is a huge thing when they come to camp and are able to have that week of just Christian influence. And so that was such a blessing to see. And we also did our very last week there. we went to a Christian school, but in Australia, Christian school really isn't Christian. It's just Christian in name. We went to this school, a chaplain invited us, and they took an entire week out of school to do a missions week. And our team came in, and 5 of us girls had missionary stories that we had prepared, and we taught 5 times a day for a whole week, and we taught our missionary stories, and we did the elementary, and we were able to sit down with 5 classes every day with children who are not from Christian homes, who have maybe not ever heard the gospel clearly. And we were able to sit down, and 5 times a day they were able to hear the gospel. And it was just such an impact on me, because there's nothing like this in America. You can't go into a public school for a week and do a missions week. And so that week, it was our very last week there. We were all very tired and very homesick. But God really used that week to teach us even more of him, because we really needed to rely on him more. There was no way we were able to do that by ourselves. And just God really gave us the strength to get through that. And he used a lot of those classes to start stirring the hearts of those children. And many of them were asking questions and were very interested in the gospel. And so now that chaplain who is there at that Christian school, now he has an inroad to all of these children because of this missions week. So we were very thankful we were able to go there and do that. But just one of the things that God really, really taught me this summer and was at the forefront was he was just taught me a lot about being faithful. I went on this trip knowing that I needed to grow, and I knew that I needed to change some things, and I knew I wanted to learn what God had for me. I wasn't quite sure what he was going to teach me, but I was excited to learn. And one of the weeks, it was, I think, our 3rd or 4th week there, we split up. Our team split up a lot and went to different churches, so it was me and one other team member. And we went to a town to do a Bible club, and it was with a family. It's an American missionary, the Minnix. And we were able to stay in their home for 5 days, and every day we would do Bible club. And God really, really used that week to confront me with my rebellion to him. There had been many areas in my life that I had always said no to God about, whether it was witnessing or teaching Sunday school things or doing stuff in the church. There were just things that I was holding back, and that I said, no, God, I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to do that. And so God used that week to confront me. He used the Minnix and that teaching that Bible story every day to really convict me that I'm saying no to God, and that's not right. And so all throughout this summer, once I realized that and was able to finally start saying yes to God and saying, yes, I'll do what you want me to do, he started just teaching me the importance of faithfulness, just faithfully obeying the Lord in the little things like reading your Bible every day and praying and just being faithful in those things that he's called you to do. Because if you're faithful in the little things, he'll give you the big things to be faithful about. And so that was just one of the big lessons that God taught me. And it was really great being there, seeing the missionary families and pastors. They are such great examples of faithfulness. Some of them have been there for years, and they are still faithful. They still love the Lord. They are great examples of just selfless love. And I was able to learn a lot from them about being selfless and serving others. So it was a really great summer, and it would take a long time to tell you about everything else. But please come up to me and ask me, because I would love to tell you. But please just pray for the Australian pastors and missionaries. They really do have a hard mission field. You may not think it because it's Australia, but it really is a hard mission field. And these pastors have spent years building relationships, trying to evangelize the Australians, and it takes a very, very long time. So pray for them, and pray for the Matskos, because they're back at home now, and they're already starting to think about next year's team. So they have lots of decisions to make, and so please pray for them. And please pray for us, the team members, that we would just continue to grow. A lot of us are graduating this next year, so I know we'll have a lot of decisions to make about what God wants us to do in the future. So just pray for that. And I just thank you again for all of your support, your prayers. We really appreciated it this summer, and we knew that you were all praying for us because there were things that happened that we knew people were praying for us. So thank you very much.
I'm just gonna start. I went to Shiri, Tigray, Ethiopia this summer with Maranatha Global Encounters, and we were there for 2.5 weeks working with a children's home under 2 different missionaries, one from Scotland and another from the Netherlands, so we weren't working with any Americans at all. But it was really neat to hear them talk back and forth because they were in a Dutch accent and an English accent, so it was really neat, and they were amazing workers of the Lord. Karen started the organization 15 years ago. They have about 70 orphans in their organization. A lot of the children there had amazing stories. This one girl that lives there, she's 8 and she's hearing impaired. And as a 4-year-old, I guess, she was leading a blind man through the streets to find food. And another girl who was there, she only had her uncle, but he was abusive to her. She came to the organization with only one arm because he severed the other one. The day that we got there, there was a baby that was brought in that was left in a valley because the parents couldn't take care of her, or they just didn't want her to be eaten by the hyenas that would come in. And there's just a lot of sad stories and a lot of amazing stories that the kids had. The main religion that was in Ethiopia was either Islam or Ethiopian Orthodox, which is a lot like the Catholic Church, except much more strict in that if you left the Orthodox Church, you would be banned from your family. And so it was very hard for there to be any converts in Ethiopia. Are the pictures?
Yeah, there's
Oh, if you could go back. That's good, okay. Okay, actually go back one more. Okay, so this is the town of Shiri. We stayed in a hotel there, and it was actually very nice compared to what we were thinking it was going to be like, and compared to previous mission trips like Panama, where we were sleeping in mosquito nets. So we didn't have any air conditioning or any fans or anything, and it was very hot, but we were happy because we had beds and showers. So if you just keep going down the street a little bit, Okay, so in Shiri, if you just go down the road just a tiny bit, you'd be in the country, and this is what pretty much the rest of the country looked like in Shiri. The children's home was a little bit past this, and it pretty much looked the same except for, you can go now. Okay, that's good. This is what the children's home looked like from the outside. Barbed wire is just to keep out animals. They weren't trapped in or anything. Every day we would go in and go out, and the kids would be there to greet us or tell us goodbye, and they loved us even though we didn't speak their language at all. The two main languages there was Amharic and Tigrinya, and I've never heard of those until I went there, so we obviously didn't speak any of that. And you can go one more. And this is where they lived. Each section of the building, there would be a room for the house mothers, a kitchen, and then 2 different bedrooms, one for 4 or 5 girls, and then one for 4 or 5 boys. And there would be one house mother to about 8 to 10 kids. And they would pretty much teach them how to cook, and they would be the mothers for them, so it would be more personal than just being in one big dorm when there's only like a couple adults taking care of them. So I thought that was really interesting of how it was set up and everything. And the older girls, they would start to learn more of the home jobs that you would need as a mother and as a housewife. And once the boys grew up to about high school age, they would go out into the town and live on their own. So this is inside one of the homes, and this is actually during one of the coffee ceremonies. They would make every foreigner go through one. You drink about 3 cups of their strongest coffee that they roast and boil for right in front of you, and I don't even like coffee, and it was really strong. But these were a lot of the kids. They just wanted to be in there because we were in there. In the white shirt at the very top, that baby was the one that was left in the valley the day that we got there. You can go ahead. This is the school. At the top, there would be a couple different rooms. It went all the way up to about 8th grade. And once you're in high school, they teach all of their classes in English. So a lot of the teachers, actually all of the teachers were unsaved. Most of the staff there was unsaved. They were all from the Orthodox Church. And you can't really see it, but the girl on the very right bottom corner, she was hearing impaired. A lot of the children, there's about a handful of children there that were hearing impaired, but everybody was made to learn sign language so that nobody would be left out and everybody was able to talk to each other. So, yeah, that is a little bit about the school. What we did was during the week, we would help in the school because we weren't allowed to take them out of their school schedule. So we would go into the school, and one of my friends and I taught them English songs like Deep and Wide, and you could hear them singing at the top of their lungs from all the way across campus, singing Deep and Wide. And we had a special ed minor who would work with the hearing impaired kids, and some elementary ed majors, and we had some nursing majors that would go with the kids that had AIDS into town and take them to the hospital and get their medicine and stuff like that. And then at night, we would do a vacation Bible school type of thing for them. We would teach them songs, and we would play games with them, and they would hear part of a missionary story, and we went through the book of Genesis, so we learned about Abraham and Isaac and all of them. And to our surprise, they were a much bigger testimony of followers of Christ than we were to them, because on Sundays we would see them sitting on their knees for 15 to 20 minutes just praying out loud to God. And I mean, we didn't understand anything they were saying, but we could just tell by the way they were speaking that they had such a close relationship with God, and it was amazing to see. And we left realizing that we could learn so much more from them. And I guess as an overview of the whole trip, what I learned the most, Pastor Aaron's asked me to tell the volleyball team last week at camp what I learned from the trip, and there was a lot I learned, but the biggest thing I think I learned was that, like the people from Brazil, the Brazil trip was saying, the people there had very little, close to nothing. They wore practically the same clothes every day and ate a lot of the same food. And you walk through the street and you're dirty, and you come back, and I mean, I don't know how often they take showers, but they had so little materialistically, but as far as emotionally and spiritually, they had more than most Americans could ever dream of. And it just really hit me in the heart that I don't need anything to be satisfied in Christ. And I guess the second biggest thing was just the love that they showed to us. The kids didn't understand anything we said. We didn't understand anything they said. But I was kind of nervous going in because I was like, I'm not really good at going up to people and talking to them, especially kids. But it was fine because they all came up to us and ran at us and hugged us, and they just loved us like the whole time. And leaving them was very hard. The day I came back, I actually cried. But so it was very life-changing as far as those two aspects go, and many others. But our last Sunday there, we sang Complete in Thee, and in the 4th verse, it talks about, and every tribe and tongue assembled are, like in front of Christ. And it was just really neat singing that in a tribe where they speak a different tongue, and it just kind of put everything into reality, and I was so thankful for the experience that God allowed me to have there in Ethiopia.
Well, I would first like to say a huge thank you to Christiane and Megan for your beautiful offertory. The song Bow the Knee is actually the theme song of the camp, the Wilds of New England, that I've worked at for the past 4 summers. And I love that camp. That camp has my heart. Jordan and Shannon they just got back from there. They spent their whole summer there. So naturally, thinking of something else to do this summer, at first I didn't want to think about it. I just want to go back to camp. I love kids, I love counseling, but last summer I actually began thinking, maybe I should branch out a little bit, do something a little bit different. And so I was able to come in contact with Tom and Selva Queter. They came to Bob Jones and were recruiting for a team to take to China. So I prayed about it and realized, this is an opportunity I may never have again. A lot of people don't even have this opportunity or privilege, and I'm going to take it. I'm going to do this. So I did, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I left July 7th, and I flew out from Charlotte to LA. Very long flight. It was only 5 hours, but I was by myself, so it felt like forever. And I met up with the team there. I really didn't know anybody. We met up in LA. There was about 30 of us. And we went from LA straight to Guangzhou. It was about a 14-hour flight. So needless to say, I got a lot of bonding time in with the girl sitting next to me. And we actually became really good friends, and we still pretty much text every day and just keep up with each other. So that was a godsend. That was really neat. We got to Guangzhou, and then it was about an hour and a half drive from Guangzhou to where I actually stayed in Dongguan. I know this means nothing to you, but I'll tell you anyway. So we were in Dongguan, and I was there for about 5 weeks. The purpose of the trip was an ESL, teaching English as a second language. So I had 18, 11, and 12-year-olds. Let that sink in. Fortunately, I had a team teacher to help me. She was my age, and I just met her on the trip, and she was such a sweet girl. She also goes to Bob Jones. So we got to tackle these 18, 11, and 12-year-olds, and they were so much fun. I absolutely loved them. But they knew, actually, surprisingly, the students in the school knew quite a bit of English, a lot of vocab. It was learning how to then put it into sentences and context and everything that we were there. The program that we went to help is called YFU. It stands for Youth for Understanding. And the purpose of the trip is so that we train them in English and in American culture so that when they're teenagers, 11th and 12th grade, they can then be sent over to America, anywhere in America, and they'll live with a host family. And so they're there for a year in America. So we are training them. So that was kind of the whole purpose of the trip. While I was there, I didn't have any curriculum. So coming from a very, very well done education at Bob Jones in elementary education, I was expecting, something to help me, a curriculum or something. I'm being taught how to grade students and teach them effectively and Common Core, all this horrible whatever. And so then they tell me, there's no curriculum. You just, you kind of come up with it. So it actually ended up being a lot of fun. My team teacher and I were able to make a different theme for each week. So for instance, one week we had holidays. So each day we got to talk about a different American holiday. And then do craft with them, play outside. And our leaders told us at the beginning, it is a missions trip, but we're not here to teach them Bible. We're here to teach them English. That's our job. But it's actually interesting, you have a lot more of an opportunity to teach them about God in this classroom than you will even in American public school system. So it's just kind of funny to look at it that way. So it was a lot of fun being able to tell them, about Easter. Easter, we have Easter egg hunts. There's the Easter bunny, you know, pastel colors. We didn't say the word pastel. That would have taken too long for them to get. But then after that, being able to say, let me tell you the real reason for Easter. Easter is when Jesus Christ arose from the dead, and getting to tell them all about that and draw pictures on the whiteboard. And my students, they kind of struggled a little bit with paying attention, but every time I would start to talk about spiritual things with them, even though they probably were getting about 5% of it, their eyes just lit up and they were just watching me so carefully. And it was wonderful, and I loved it. And it's different from camp. At camp, you get to all day long pour scripture, and they understand you, and this is different, but it's still God working, and that was amazing. While I was there, I learned 2 major lessons. The first one is just that God is the God of this world. We went to a place far away from here, and in China, and specifically the place we were in too, they're basically atheists. They don't believe in a God at all. They believe that Jesus is a part of the Western culture. So if you want to believe in Jesus in the Western culture in America, good for you, but we don't do that here. Jesus isn't our God. He's the God of America. He's the God of the Western culture. And he's not. He's the God of everywhere. And being able to tell them that, and being able to talk to some of the older students on weekends, they would ask a lot of questions, and being able to say, my God can be your God. He is the God of this world. That was an amazing opportunity. In a second, I have a couple-minute slideshow that I want to show you. They're going to be pictures of teaching. During the week, we taught every day. It was pretty much 8 o'clock to 4:30, and then that was the teaching time. We had about an hour or 2 break in the middle, and then from 4:30 to 5:30, we got to play basketball, play soccer, just do sort of like reaching out activities to them. And then in the evening, we had English corner, movie time, game time. So just extra times that they were optional for the students. The students could come and we could play games. You know, we could talk about anything they wanted to talk about in English. And that was another really neat opportunity, because the students who wanted to know more about Christianity came to those times. And so they would ask us more of those times, you know, we want to know more about Christianity. Can you tell us some more? So that was just really neat. So God is the God of this world. He can save them. There is no reason that God loves you more than he would love somebody across the world. He loves us all the same. Nobody deserves it. But as we so well learned this morning, God loves us, and it's an amazing fact. And we just have to embrace that, and we can tell that to people all across the world. But not only is he the God of the world, he's the God of us individually and our individual needs. While I was over there, real quick, I know I'm taking a lot of time. While I was over there, there was a day when I lost pretty much everything. My purse was stolen, and it had pretty much all my identification, credit cards, iPad, everything that I thought I needed to survive over there. But being able to use that even as a tool and a testimony of, all right, God, you care about me. You knew this was going to happen. Let's go with it. What's going to happen now? And I remember having a couple older Chinese students come up to me, and they were extremely just surprised. They said, why are you not crying? You need to cry. Why are you not crying? Because I had lost everything, and I'm thinking, you didn't see me cry. I was just over there crying up a storm. But, you know, even that I can use to show them it's all right. God's in control, and if he wants me to find those things, he'll help me find them. If not, I can move forward. They're just material things. So those are 2 huge lessons that I learned. I was also able to do some sightseeing. I visited Hong Kong and Macau and spent a weekend in Guangzhou, and so you'll see a few pictures of that. But thank you so much for your prayers. I had an amazing time, and I love my students and I miss them, and it just made me so excited to have my own classroom someday and be a teacher. And so I'm just thankful to God, and I'm thankful to you all too. So enjoy this slideshow.
Oh, come and see how the name of the Lord is revered. All the earth is alive with a worshipful song. Oh, come to the cross and be free of rebellion and pride. Oh, come and rejoice evermore in all God has done.
So great is his power that his enemies crumble and fall. Forever he reigns and he rules by his might. His eyes are ablaze, keeping watch on the nations of men. All the kings of the earth do his will, and all his delight, shout, shout out for joy to God all the earth. Sing, sing out the glory of his name. Say, say unto God, how awesome your deeds. Give to the Lord his glorious praise.
I will bless you, O God, when you lovingly test and refine. Though I walk through the fire, I will offer you praise. You will shepherd my soul to a place of abundance and rest. I will come to your house and an offering of thankfulness raise. Oh, come and hear, all who fear God and call on his name. How I cried to the Lord, and he answered my prayer. Had I cherished my sin, all my words would be empty and vain. Bless the Lord for his mercy and faithfulness, crown all our days, crown all our days. Shout, shout out for joy to God all the earth. Sing, sing out the glory of his name. Sing out the glory of his name. Say unto God, how awesome your deeds. How awesome your deeds. Give to the Lord his glorious praise. Shout, shout out for joy in glorious praise.
$538. Remain seated as we sing just a couple stanzas here. Stanzas 1 and 2. I love to tell the story of unseen things above. 538. I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and his glory, of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story because I know 'tis true. It satisfies my
Okay, I guess we might use the mic if we can just use the one back there, it'd be fine. Kara and I had opportunity to go to Argentina for 10 days in May, working with a group called International Healthcare Missions. And was a wonderful time. Just great to see how God can use different talents and abilities, as we've heard already tonight, how even just being able to teach English, being able to work with children in an orphanage, being able to do construction work and help out with church construction, all these things that God can use to advance his kingdom. And it was a wonderful opportunity for us as we had the opportunity to be with a group of about 10 people from across the country as we traveled from Atlanta to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and then met up with a group of 10 people from across the country. As I mentioned, there were 2 medical providers. Kara was one of the physicians there. The rest of us didn't know anything about medicine, but this trip was a medical mission trip. So it was neat to see how God used us to help and to support the work that he had there. We worked with a missionary couple who had just been on the field for about 1.5 years. God called them to the mission field later in life. Jim and Janet Wine, their primary mission there is to support some churches that are already in place. There's a group of about 5 or 6 churches that work together. This is a map of the different area there just outside of Buenos Aires, where these 5 or 6 churches have already plotted out over 40 different locations where they want to plant a church. Most of the folks who live there, they have to get to church by walking there. They don't have public transportation or vehicles to get around. And so these churches have already identified specific communities where they want to reach out and reach the people in those communities. The churches are working together very closely, working with the missionary there to reach these areas. And so one of our goals of being there for the time that we were there was to see people come in from those communities that wouldn't otherwise have come to the church. And so our draw was the medical aspect of the team. We would set up a clinic in the church structure in most cases. In a couple cases where there wasn't already a church, the churches had come together and rented a facility where we were able to work with the local church people, where the community would come into the church. They would meet there, line up, be ready for us as we came in to see whatever medical needs or physical needs they may have. Obviously, the reason we were there was to share the gospel with them or to speak with them about their spiritual health. And this was one of the most important things that we were able to do. And so they would come in, we would get a brief medical history from them, understand what their primary complaint was and why they were there to see the doctor. And then that opened up a huge opportunity for us, because then we could transition then into so here's your physical needs, but tell me, what are your spiritual needs? And so that would then open the door, as we had built a little bit of a relationship there in those few minutes that we had, to be able to talk about things that were even beyond what they thought was their chief complaint. And we know that their chief need was salvation. And so Kara was able to see different folks through the medical side of the clinics, young and old, and different families and children, different age groups. And as she would then follow up with those patients, after we had met with them, we would write down what they said their spiritual condition was, and then she was able to follow up, as well as the other medical providers who were there were able to follow up on some of the questions that they may have. While we were there, we saw over 400 people, and of those, about 45 or so made professions of faith while we were there. Over 100 people said that they were interested in hearing more about the gospel. This man, I think he was very happy. I think Kara had told him that she wasn't going to charge him anything that day for coming to see the doctor, and so he was very excited. At the end of every meeting, clinic, we would gather together with the local pastor of the church, and we would hand him a stack of cards that he would then have all of the contact information of everyone who had come through the clinic that day. And we would emphasize to him that, this has been a great opportunity for us to come and to work with you, to share the gospel with these people, but now you have the privilege of being able to disciple these people who have made professions of faith, and to follow up with your church people to reach out to these names of those who have indicated that they're interested in hearing more. And so that was a huge blessing to be able to do that and share these names with these pastors. Just briefly, one of the saddest things that we saw while we were there was the main cathedral there in Buenos Aires. They're very proud. They're of the Pope. The current Pope is from Argentina, and so they're very proud of that. And as we walked through there, we'd see the different people kneeling and praying to statues. We saw people at the confessional booth, and it was just hard for us to not go up to them and say, this is not going to solve your problem. And to see so many people walk out of there with just their faces still very saddened and still bearing the burden of their sin, and knowing that that had not been lifted, and that we have the message of the gospel, we have their true answer to their need. That was very sad for us to see, but we were very grateful for those 40 or so who came and expressed interest and made a profession of faith while we were there. We always, the trips that we go on, we're always reminded, as was mentioned already, of just how God is not confined to American churches and middle-class neighborhoods and English-speaking, but He is all-powerful. And there is a day coming very soon when we will behold with everyone else people from every tribe and every tongue and every nation standing before God and giving Him glory. And so what a privilege to be able to have a part in that and to see the kingdom expanded. And we have that opportunity as well as we go to work each day, as we sit next to the person in the cube next to us, as we live our lives, we have that opportunity to be witnesses and to be testimonies. And so what a blessing that we have this to look forward to.